Coming up, a very personal story of a young man growing up in Ipswich, struggling to find his own identity. Bryant Strong is now a registered nurse caring for others, but that's only part of what he does to help the community. It's Wednesday, May 18, 2022, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This episode marks International Nurses Day and International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Interphobia and Transphobia, which began in 1990. From a global perspective to a very local one, Bryant Strong is one of the many human faces of both. He is a University of Southern Queensland nursing graduate, now studying 2 degrees, and dedicated to improving the mental health of LGBTIQ young people in the Ipswich area. Bryant Strong joins me now. Thanks for speaking with Ipswich Today, Bryant.
Thanks so much for having me.
You were born in Ipswich and went to Westmoreton Anglican College. Can you describe for us your family environment and what challenges you faced growing up while coming to terms with your own sexuality?
Yeah, I was born in the same hospital that I do a lot of work with now, the Ipswich General Hospital. So very much a local boy. Look, it's always a thing to come to terms with. It's interesting. I think Ipswich as a community has changed a lot in the last 20 or so years. There's a strong pride community building up here. The University of Southern Queensland, where I graduated from, where I do my current degrees, has a really amazing pride group and pride community. There was a wonderful documentary the SBS did a couple of years ago on drag shows and bowls clubs.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yes.
I think one of the things just is that I, growing up as a young boy in Ipswich, probably didn't get a lot of representation in bisexual, pansexual men. So I suppose men that were really like myself, attracted to people, men, women, people who identify as gender fluid or non-binary, just people in general.
Did you actually come out while it's still at school?
I came out in my final year of school at the same time that 2 of my friends did.
And what was the reception like generally across your fellow students and from the school itself?
The school was actually really great. We do have a number of staff in the community. Still, I was doing those kind of very artsy, very drama-y subjects all throughout my high school as well. And no, it was really, really phenomenal. I think there's a negative stigma sometimes associated with the community and what is an Anglican high school. But I managed to get a lot of support. I was the chapel captain in my final year, the same year I came out. I believe that at that point the school had 6 consecutive school captains who identified in the LGBTQI+ community.
Were you ever under any pressure to deny or change your own sexuality?
There's a difficulty that exists. There's a pressure that probably does exist with young queer men who don't neatly fit into just a gay man, a gay young man. I think that there is this tendency, or at least I felt, and I know some of my other friends did, to just, if there was any even remote attraction to anyone that was feminine, to kind of pursue that, if that makes any sense.
So you've left school, you've succeeded, you've graduated, and you went on to do a Bachelor of Nursing at USQ. When did you decide on nursing as a career?
Oh, always, absolutely always. Nursing and midwifery were always my goal, and I'm studying midwifery at the moment. My younger brother is autistic, and growing up, he had some amazing care in the healthcare system. And I really loved how how everyone was with him and that kind of personal element. And even for a while, I was thinking about sort of medicine, but then I realized that personal connection and that sitting down and talking to people was always more of an interest to me than any of the actual medical stuff. So nursing just seemed appropriate.
You also specialise in mental health, and mental health is regularly in the news, a lot more than it used to be, thankfully, especially focusing on LGBTIQ young people. What is your personal experience when you were in those formative years in your teens? Did you actually go out looking for and get any support?
When I was growing up, to be honest, I navigated a lot of those really kind of formative things with the amazing support of my family and of my friends, and I had a really great support network around me. But what would have been really good is having representation, and just even knowing, even if I didn't engage with it, knowing that services where I could reach out to that worked with LGBTQI plus youth would have been phenomenal.
There's a well-publicised risk of depression, anxiety, substance abuse and suicidal thoughts among young people. What more can be done to help?
A lot more can be done to help youth generally. We need better support networks, and I think stronger networks in school. I think that we need to be supporting children's mental health in school, and I think that's become even more of a case during this pandemic. In the LGBTQI plus community, young transgender people form the highest suicide bracket at the moment, just in this country. And there's not enough addressing that, I don't think.
The struggles with sexual identity growing up is also not new, and we are fortunate it's talked about a lot more. And after school now, you've become very much an advocate for the community. What was your motivation? And in practical terms, what are you doing to raise awareness of all the issues?
One point I don't think that's highlighted enough with the LGBTQI plus community is that it is, and those struggles that you have early on in life, it is a culture. There is this culture, this amazing culture which exists in this community. And it's one of the only cultures on earth that you're not born into. I mean, people from religious and ethnic minorities face a series of discriminations, and that's a fact. But the reality is that if you fall into an ethnic or a religious minority, you do so because your parents are. You have someone that you can come home and talk to. Young queer kids growing up in places that aren't, Sydney, aren't Brisbane, aren't Melbourne, don't always have that kind of support network. Advocacy became a really big thing in the work that I did. Even before I'd finished my degree, I started doing work with the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, and started doing working with the committee there doing medical support. Right.
So how did you reach out and get involved?
I went to see the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras one year, and then I just met and got talking with some of the medical people there. I think nurses find nurses quite quickly, and it was just it became I think this is a really important job you're doing. I'd really love to help with that. So when you get one of the biggest events on the planet, when you get that many people together in an area, in a crowded street, medical support becomes a really important thing.
You've taken on a role with a local mental health service. How did that come about, and what are you actually doing there?
Yeah, so our House, Our Haven, which is an absolutely phenomenal mental health service. It's nurse-led. It's run by Kerry Blake, who's a credentialed mental health nurse. She formerly was running mental health supports at the Ipswich Hospital, and then kind of in her retirement wanted to do work outside of a hospital setting, because mental health work isn't always best suited in a hospital setting. I did a placement there, in fact, for my nursing degree at USQ, and I fell completely in love with the place. And I graduated and I finished my nursing. and I started doing work there. And they work with absolutely everyone, but a lot of people with trauma. And I came there specifically to work with children and youth in trauma. And I still do. I don't work exclusively with the queer community, but I definitely offer a series of services to them specifically. And it actually kind of came in place of I was just working with young people with mental health concerns. And as the research suggests, a lot of those young people identified in the LGBTQI+ community. And from there, I started to get a lot more specialized, a lot more interested and passionate about working with young queer people, especially with gender identity. So young trans people, young people questioning their gender identity, and started to do some really specific work with that.
I can hear the passion in your voice. What are you finding are the issues that young people are coming to you at the moment with? What are they talking about?
It's hard on parents, I think. And I honestly do understand that. I think every because the other work in the medical field I do, and I'm very lucky to do is midwifery as well. And I'm very much aware that you birth a wonderful, beautiful baby boy, and you hand that over to a mum or a dad or whatever couple. In the immediate 30 seconds, their whole life, they start to plan out their whole life. They think, this is a beautiful boy. I'm going to go play catch with him on the weekends. He's going to go to the old boys' school up the road. They start to plan this entire life. And then you get to those ages where people start to question their identity and developmental changes start to happen, that 14, 15, 16, 17. And then suddenly, as a parent, you hear, actually, I'm not a boy. I'm a girl. I'm a woman. I always have been. And that can be a really hard thing for parents to adjust, because a whole lot of their expectations change very, very quickly. And when you have parents that struggle with that, or parents, and we do, that just simply refuse to accept that, it causes a lot of tension in our young people. A lot of the work I do when I work with trans people is sitting down with their family as well, is talking with their family about it.
Bryant, you mentioned you were still studying, so what's next for you?
So I am studying a master's of nursing specializing in mental health right now, and that is to strengthen the already additional studies I've done in mental health nursing. And I'm also studying a Bachelor's of Midwifery. And I suppose the goal with that is I would love to open a service in Ipswich, which works with women with mental health concerns, which impact and face their pregnancy. I will always work with the LGBTQI+ community, and I think Ipswich Hospital is starting to see a lot more people who are giving birth, who identify in that community. I can't imagine me leaving the role I do now, but I would love to add on to it that kind of maternal support, because it's another at-risk group, young or even older women who are having babies and who just, in addition to everything else that's going on in their body, are really struggling emotionally.
Bryant Strong, it's been a pleasure to talk to you to mark International Nurses Day and the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Interphobia and Transphobia. Wishing you all the best, and thanks for talking with Ipswich Today.
Thanks so much for having me.
A reminder, you will find handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button on the homepage to make a payment through PayPal. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts, or play Ipswich Today from smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.